Hello, my beautiful human. Welcome back to the She Did It Anyway podcast. I am so excited you're here, and I hope you are having an amazing week or weekend whenever you are listening to this episode. I am so excited to record this episode today because we are going to talk about this mistakes that I've made in business to date and what I've learned. I think that this is so beneficial to really talk about because I know that social media makes us just talk about the highlight reels. And I have been so many times been in a situation where I'm just constantly comparing myself to other entrepreneurs, to other people that I look up to. And I'm like, Jesus, they like never make mistakes. They have never failed. This is so easy for them, or they're just really good at it. They know exactly what to do. Why can't I figure this out? And I don't take account that or in consideration that they have probably made a billion mistakes along the way. And it's hard sometimes to think about that when you are not in their shoes. Like you don't know when they don't tell you, like you have no idea what mistakes they've made. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that mentor for you. I don't want to be that person. I want to talk about the mistakes. I want to talk about what I've learned, and hopefully help you not make those mistakes that I've made. That would be, the goal here. And as I was thinking about how I wanted to break down this episode and what type of mistakes I want to talk about, I was laughing because I literally was like, where do I begin? Where do I begin when I talk about all of the things that I've learned along the way through making quote unquote the wrong decision, or not knowing if it was the wrong decision until after, right? Where do I begin about all of these mistakes that I've made? And it really was just an eye-opening time. It's funny, like whenever I plan out these episodes, it's also time for me to do a lot of reflecting. And it just made me really happy and really proud of myself to be able to go through all of this like shit that I went through for 3 years so far in business and still be able to say, hey, I'm still in business and year over year being profitable and growing. And it's just been such a gift to be able to do this, but that does not come without sacrifice and mistakes and lots of tears, lots and lots of tears, and also a lot of espresso martinis. So let's just dive in. I made a list and then I left some parts blank because I wanted to talk to you about it and hope that we can have a conversation about really future mistakes and maybe mistakes that you've made. And I'm wondering if we have any of the same overlapping mistakes. And if these are common, then between me and you, I'm sure so many more people have also experienced this. So the first thing that I realized that I did that has made me lose a lot of money, a lot of sleep, and just has brought me so much stress is doubting myself. I know you're thinking like, oh my gosh, Marina, that is not a mistake. No, it literally is. Every single time I doubt myself, I second guess myself, I hold myself back, I am too scared to do something. I either realize that I didn't act fast enough and someone else has jumped on a trend and the trend is over. Someone else did something that I wanted to do in my industry and now I'm doing it after them. And it's honestly a mistake that I find myself still doing over and over again. Like it's not a lot of these mistakes that I'm going to go through, I've learned from and I don't do it anymore. Where this one, it's like this ongoing mistake. And the reason why I call it a mistake is because I have never let myself down. I actually posted on January 9th, a post about our 3-year anniversary for Empowered Confidence. And I was saying like, number one mistake was to doubting myself because I know the work that I'm going to put in, right? When you doubt yourself, like you are doubting your ability to show up, you're doubting all of these things where when you take a second, you're like, I'm betting on myself. Why would I ever doubt myself? Like I would never let myself down. I know the work that I'm going to put in. I know the energy. I know how good I am at what I do. Like, why would I doubt myself? So that I just wanted to kick it off of like, that is my biggest mistake and one that I still make often. The second mistake is not having my contracts or the right contracts in place. And this really screwed me twice. So badly. I realize now it is sometimes hard to think of worst case scenarios when it comes to business and life. And you always know that like I love thinking of the best case scenarios and giving people the benefit of the doubt. But unfortunately, in business, you cannot give people the benefit of the doubt. And I learned the hard way. I had two clients, one specific lady, damn near like take my exact business trainings, just change slightly the name of the trainings, create courses, create events, create communities, take my clients. I mean, it was disgusting to look at. And I actually was less upset about it happening and more upset about my clients reaching out to me about it. And I realized when I look at the contract, I was like, oh, I'm protected. And it essentially what I had was it like, yes, there was a line that said it protected my content, but it was like very generic. And all of my contracts really protected my clients more than me. And that was one contract that I realized. The second contract was with vendors. A lot of the contracts always protected them. So when I signed a deal to do a website, I realized that like I actually can't ask for my money back, even though they didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And the contract that I signed only protected them. It did not protect me. So having the right contracts in place is so important. And, first year of business, I probably would have told you like, oh yeah, like this generic contract is enough. You need specific contracts for your specific business, your specific products and services. That is a non-negotiable. Spend your money on that rather than taking a course on how to create contracts. Like, no, hire a professional to do that. The third thing is boundaries. I have always felt so guilty implementing boundaries when it comes to my clients and my business, because I felt like I do coaching and consulting and training. Like they purchased me, right? They purchased my time and I need to give them all of this time. And I realized that I had really, really, really let go of my boundaries when it came to a lot of my clients and my time, that I burnt out. I burnt out so much, and I was starting to feel like resentment. And along the way, I learned that two things will make you feel resentment when it comes to your clients, and it is lack of implementing boundaries and not charging enough. When you're not charging enough, you are so unhappy to show up for them and you're not giving them 110% what they deserve. And when you are not implementing your boundaries, you are not giving them 110% and you're not giving yourself what you deserve, right? Because when you drop these boundaries, your energy is low. I realized that I'm just like, I'm annoyed. This was really in 2021 is where I started feeling like, oh my God, I'm getting pulled left and right. Every single question I had to immediately answer. I felt like I was letting someone down. And again, it goes back to that guilt. So I have started to implement boundaries, and it's really uncomfortable, if I'm being honest. Like implementing boundaries to my clients of letting them know, hey, no text messages. You can't just FaceTime me whenever you want to ask me a question. That's just like, you just can't. And it's funny because my phone is like it's like my sacred space. I don't have clients that text me. Like if they text me, it's just about fun and like happy, like personal life stuff. It's not about business. And I'm like, email me. We have a private community that you can message me in, because it allows me to implement the boundary of saying, hey, right now I'm not checking this, but in an hour and 2 hours when I have the allocated time to check this, I will. Right. And so, but it was uncomfortable saying, hey, like you can't text me, you can't FaceTime me. You can't just call me. You can't expect like a 1 hour turnaround, even though that is what my clients get. But I was putting these pressures on myself because I wasn't implementing my boundaries. So the fourth thing is how I spent my money. Oh my God. This like literally sends chills up my spine. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm like rolling my eyes because nobody tells you this stuff. This is what I'm like, and maybe they do, maybe I just didn't listen, but I spent money on things that I should not have spent money on. And I still get really annoyed when I think about it to this day. And I've tried to like shift my perspective of it's okay. It's a learning process. but it effing sucks so much. But I remember, so first year in business, such an amazing year. I took about, oh God, like $30,000 and spent it on a website and branding. I cannot stress enough how you should not do that. And I have so many brand design friends and web developers and all the things. And I 100% think they would agree with me. Like when you are just starting out your business, you do not need to spend especially that much money on your website and your branding. One, because your business is going to evolve and change. It is inevitable. Okay. And when you're starting out, a lot of the time, especially as a solopreneur, you're building a business. Like you don't actually realize it until after, but your first initial idea, like you're building it off of what you think is needed in the market. And then, so let's say you build your business and you are a solopreneur, the first 6 months, 9 months, maybe year, you're building a business off of what you think needs to exist in the market, not what actually needs to exist in the market, because you haven't done as much market research as you need to really understand the problem and solution that you're offering. And so investing in coaching, investing in courses, investing in consulting, investing in mentors, that 110%. But investing in someone to create a brand new logo for you and color palettes and a website and having all of these functionalities that you don't even know that your target audience needs or wants or cares for, you're going to screw yourself in the end. And I 110% did. I also spent so much money because I was like, oh, now that I'm making this much money, I need like the best of the best. I need this like super complicated, complex website. And so I moved off of Kajabi and went to WordPress. It was the worst experience of my life. First of all, WordPress, this is a message to the team at WordPress. What in the world? Like, why are you stuck in like the first take of the internet? Like, why is your user interface like that? Why does it look like that? Why is it so clunky and hard? Like, there's no way that I need to be a coder to understand how to use this platform. I'm sorry. It's joking. So WordPress, call me. We need to talk. Like, we need to talk. Okay. Sorry. Obviously, I'm still very triggered by that investment. But I spent all this money on branding and on a website now that I realized I did not need. I realized it very quickly that I didn't need it. It was also just a terrible experience. But I have forgiven that company. And then I also spent too much money on little things that I didn't need, like swag. I didn't need all of the swag that I had purchased right out of the get-go because again, my like logo evolved and now I have all of this, like my maiden name on everything. So I just acted too fast because I was so excited. Like I just was so excited and I was like, this is what I wanted to do. And so sometimes you just got to learn the hard way. But yes, so number 4 was spending money on the wrong things. I went on a tangent like I always do, but that's why we're besties, because you get me and I get you. 5, not getting up fast enough during my first failed launch. They tell you the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that can get up so fast after they take a hit. And I will tell you, that was not me the first year and a half. Sorry, the second year of business. First year, we talked about this, like 2020, because I was tapping into the digital world and creating courses. That specific year was so successful for a lot of digital creators and course creators because everybody was taking courses and pivoting from being in person to digitally. So that year was like flourishing. 2021, oh my God, it was the worst hit that I've ever taken to, and it's funny because when I looked at it, this is why I always say like use failure as data. When I look back at the data, I didn't make less money than 2020, but I had less clients than I did in 2020. And so in my head, I translated that as failure. So my point of the mistake, I wrote, not getting up fast faster during my first failed launch and using it as data because my ego took over. So I launched BBA in 2020 and it was like, I think we had like 5 or 6 rounds. I mean, it was wild. 2021, I increased my prices. First launch, wild. 21, 22 students. I mean, it was crazy. Second launch, I think I had 2 students. When I tell you that took me out, I was supposed to launch again like 2 months later and I didn't because I was like, I'm going to fail. Like my ego took over. And my previous business coach always says like your ego is your biggest overhead because it literally will cost you so freaking much. And it's just insane to see how your mind can take over when you take a hit. So my previous business coach always says your ego is your biggest overhead because it will cost you so much. And it's crazy how your mind can take over when you're thinking that you failed or just didn't, or just when things don't go as planned. When things don't go as planned, like we have 2 options. We, order some pizza, cry, drink some wine, and just like curl up in a ball, or we use it as data and keep it moving. And I got the pizza, I got the wine, and I cried up in a ball. And so for number 5, when I look back at it, in 2021, I would say my biggest mistake was not moving fast enough after my failed launch, because at the end of the year, what I realized is revenue wise, same exact money. If not, I actually made about $10,000 more than the previous year. But because in my head, I was only picking one specific number. I was like, okay, my last class was 20 students. I want 25 students in this class. And when you don't get that, you're like, oh, this is terrible. But I didn't take account that I still had 2 or 3 launches left. And it didn't help that I had my cousin chat and my friends and family like, ooh, how many students signed up this time? How many students? And so I was just so embarrassed. Like my ego and my mind just took over. And so that is one of the biggest mistakes that I have done. And I'm really interested to know if you've ever felt like that, if you've been in that position, especially in business, like what were you feeling and what was like the punch in the gut for you? Was it a failed launch? Was it not as many people as you wanted? Was like the products didn't come in time? Like I really want to know what that was, because I know now everybody experiences that. And the crazy part is, before I move on to number 6, the crazy part is social media and marketing. Like that is the power of social media marketing. You would never know. Like genuinely, you would never know. And so imagine experiencing this, like a lot of entrepreneurs do, and then faking it. You're like struggling inside. You're so upset, and you still have to show up 110% and pretend that like your business is fine, because it is fine, but you just didn't hit your goals. And I actually had to realize, like a lot of the companies that I've worked for, you forecast this, and there's so many companies that like don't hit their goals quarterly. And so many teams that don't hit their goals quarterly. The business doesn't just close and go bankrupt. The only way it will is if you sit on your butt and don't do anything, right? And so, so reflecting back, that is the biggest mistake. The 6th thing is comparing myself to others, but not just comparing myself to others. I found myself, I don't do this anymore, thank God, but I found myself comparing myself to people in my industry that have been in my industry for like 20, 30, 40 years. Like when I created my like confidence course, my confidence training, I was like, oh, what is Tony Robbins doing? What? Like, what? How am I comparing myself to him or evaluating my success based on his success? He's been in this for like 80 years. The man is so old. So it's like, I don't actually know how old he is, but I envision him being very old. Comparing myself to others, but not just anybody, people that have been in the industry forever. And so I always say, especially to my clients, stop comparing yourself, your day 1 to someone's day 1,000, right? Like your chapter 1 to someone's 5th book. Like you just can't do that because it'll just hurt yourself. Like it will literally hurt your progress. It will hurt your energy and how you show up. Okay. The 7th thing was not making changes fast enough, again, to my ego. So I had launched the membership in 2021. Oh, I didn't even say. So number 4, I said spent money on the wrong things. So in the same time, I had spent 30,000 on a website and branding. I had also spent like 20,000 on a marketing campaign. Sorry, I'm in a spiral again. It was just so bad. So I spent like 20,000 on this marketing campaign for the membership, which is now closed down, but it's not closed down. I'll explain in a second. But the membership, where I had envisioned, I wanted to create this digital community that was like 150, $200 a year. And you get access to hundreds of courses inside, trainings, bi-weekly calls, coaching calls. There is an app, and I wanted to combine fitness and building your business and mindset all into one platform. Okay. And so what I did was created this membership. I hired a trainer, mindset coach, leadership coach, and we created all of these workouts, all of these trainings, all of these courses inside. We had a jam-packed schedule, brought in speakers, and I spent so much money on this campaign, and I launched it, and I was like, I want 1,000 members in the first launch. That was the dumbest number that I have ever pulled, because it literally came out of my ass. I had no data to base that off of. There's communities that are in place now that have been in place for 10 years that don't even have 1,000 members. But again, I was just like, I pulled this number out of my ass, and I had 50 people join. I was so upset in my head at the quote unquote like fail of not hitting that 1,000 that I didn't even like fully didn't fully celebrate the 50 that joined. And I was just so sad. I was so sad. I was like, I failed all this stuff. I didn't make my money back. I didn't make profit. Like, this was so bad. And I spiraled. And it took me about like a month or two to realize, oh, this is actually great. Everything is awesome. Everybody's engaged. We have speakers. People were loving the membership. Then the holidays came and people started traveling. And I realized that I had lost the engagement inside the membership started to go down. And it was so much work for me to keep the engagement going, keep the momentum going, schedule speakers, create new courses, pay the trainers, pay the coaches. When I tell you it was so much work, you can't even imagine. Here is where the mistake was. The mistake was me not wanting to explain to people that this was not like equal value. It was just too much work for the return that I was getting from a business standpoint. And so rather than changing the structure of it, rather than, canceling the membership or changing it to what it is now, which I'll talk to you in a second about, I decided to just keep it going and like put my foot on the pedal even more and try to push it even more. We ended up getting our membership up to 170 members. The problem was it was still the engagement. The engagement was live event engagement. People were still watching the mini courses, but to get someone on a call on a Zoom was almost impossible at times. And it was just during a period where people were so zoomed out, like it was done. People did not want to consume any more digital content. Like they had burnt out. And so rather than me shifting or changing the structure, I was like, go, 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 go. So 2 years in, I had burnt out and I needed to think about what I wanted to do from a business standpoint. And so I had decided to take a look at who is actually engaging in the community. And I realized that the people that were engaging, the most engaging, coming to every call, watching every video, asking questions, communicating inside, were all of my clients that had joined my course, my retreat, my one-on-ones, my corporate clients. Like it was all the women that I had worked with on a larger scale. And so I was like, okay, what if I shift this community to only be, it's like a more exclusive experience for these clients. And so they'll get all of this like exclusive access to guests and mini speakers and more trainings and more programs. And so it's just more added value for them rather than trying to bring in someone that I've never worked with before for, $200 a year and try to like pour into her with all of this content. Like this is going to be too much for her. So to circle back, I shifted and I said, okay, this is just for my clients. And it has been such an insane, beautiful shift. My clients are showing up 110%. They're communicating, they're sharing their wins, they're talking inside. They're like raving about the community. Like that to them is like the best part of working with me. And I'm like, holy crap, like why didn't I move faster on this? Why didn't I decide this immediately when I realized that this engagement is going down and after trying a couple of things of picking up the engagement back up? And so when I go back to my mistake, I realized that my biggest mistake for that specific thing is making the changes faster. I didn't make the changes faster enough because I didn't want people to know that I created a product that didn't work. Especially, which I realize now, there's a stat that says like a user will go through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok within like 30 seconds without even realizing. Like it's just switching, like us being the user, switching from one app to another. And it was very hard to get people to open up the app. And so that was like one of the biggest things that I realized is that it just didn't work out. And it was too much time and effort for me for the return that I was getting. And so I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And rather than changing it and using that quote unquote failure as data, I just let ego and my mindset take over. And I was just so annoyed and so upset. And so I couldn't think clearly. And so when I think back to it, it's just insane how your mind takes over. And that goes back to getting up faster, not letting your ego take over, making changes, being okay, being wrong. I think that is huge. And just also just knowing that you're learning along the way. Like shame on me for not realizing that I was going to make mistakes along the way. Like, of course I am. I've never done this before. Nobody has told me how to do it. And even the people that have done it, they can't guarantee it's going to work. Like everybody in every situation is different. And so those are my 7 biggest mistakes that I have made up to date. It always goes back to doubting myself. Contracts, get your contracts in order, boundaries, set those boundaries and then stick to it. Money, really understanding like what you're using your money for, and you're building a business, not a hobby, and getting up faster, stop comparing yourself and make the changes faster, make faster decisions, and just roll with the punches, girl. Roll with the punches. I hope that shedding some light on my mistakes and the lessons that I've learned will help you take the leap and also just like give you some grace in making mistakes as well. I want to hear what you've experienced while building your business and your career. Like what are things that you learned? Like what are things that you've learned along the way, the hard way? I love you. I hope this episode was helpful. And I'm so happy I could shed some light into what the past 3 years of business looks like, because girl, the next 3 years are going to be crazy. And I'm sure I'm going to make a hell of a lot more mistakes. But I promise to share them along the way. All right. Love you so much. Bye.